What is up, everyone? Welcome to another issue of Sibling Rival-Read, the comic book club show hosted by yours truly. It's Ben Pie, along with the sibling, the sister.
The Anakin.
Hey.
His face purposeful.
Yeah, we are back with another week of reading comics. Again, for those of you who might be new, Sibling Rival-Read is the comic book show where my sister and I sit down and we discuss a trade of a comic or a volume one of a manga, essentially trying to find the books that make it easy for new comic book readers to get started. And then at the end of each issue, we sit down and we give the books a rating. We rate the story, we rate the art, and we rate the book overall. And at the end of every month, we see who has the higher score.
Which we still need to determine that from last month. So if you have not cast a vote
Yep.
on which one was your favorite.
It's benpie.com/poll would be the place to vote. This week was my pick. We're doing our independent book choice, and that book was chosen by me. And it is Hellboy: Seed of Destruction, written and art by Mike Mignola, with extra help writing by John Byrne. And I chose this one. I was between this and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because they're both movies. They came out around the same time, and they were both movies that I really, really enjoyed, even though that they might not actually have been like great movies. They're still movies that I enjoyed watching. So that was my reason for um, choosing. Oh no. Choosing this book in particular. I found out just randomly that this week was also Ron Perlman's birthday. And because Anna probably doesn't know, Ron Perlman was the actor who played Hellboy in those first couple Hellboy movies.
Cool. Cool.
Um, which I really think, reading this comic now, I really feel like Mike Mignola just had Ron Perlman in mind when he drew Hellboy because he looks like Ron Perlman.
Yeah, no, I thought I liked him in the movie, which I mean, I didn't see the movie until a few years ago in college. Collage.
Really, you didn't watch the movie until college?
Yeah. Oh,
Eventually, Anna's
that's
video
okay.
will come back to us. I don't know why she's stuck in facepalm mode, but
Ah, my
this
bad.
is this is the world we live in.
But yeah, no, I didn't watch it with you. Vic made me watch it for the makeup.
Oh, okay, I could see that.
Mhm.
Oh my God, why is your video still completely
Look,
frozen
I
for me?
can't fix the video. I don't know why it's stuck like that. On the bright side, though, it's not like a stupid image to be stuck on because half my face is covered, so it's fine.
That's true. So that was kind of my reasoning for picking this book. And jumping into it, the first thing I've got to say about this book is I was totally enamored with the like noir chiaroscuro style artwork um, of
Okay.
this book. And I love that there's a shout out to H.P. Lovecraft in here because there's definitely some Lovecraftian elements that come into this book. What with how he does the paranormal um, things that are encountered and the spooky cursed house and all of that. So you can definitely see like from the get go that he drew some inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft, and I was here for it. I especially loved these chapter images.
I did really like the chapter images. When you say film noir kinda or noir inspired paneling, I really only see that in the chapter caps. Everything else noir is really just,
It's just in
I guess,
color,
the
but
shadows,
the lighting that they're doing is very,
which
very
would be
film
just the
noir.
shadows, which
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, okay. But we're not talking about art yet.
I mean, that is what we're talking about.
I mean, yeah, but we don't normally talk about art first. I mean, we can talk about art first.
That's what I'm talking about right now. So why are you trying to
I
change the subject?
I don't think that it's very, I mean, it has high contrast and shadows, which for film noir, it's supposed to add drama to it and more emotion to it and more suspense, which I didn't think that the use of shadows added more drama or suspense, which could just be my opinion based on the heavy shadowing and then the extremely pop art of color,
Yeah, I think
which
the
juxtaposes the intent on noir being edgy when you have pop art color.
I mean, I'll say yes and no. And I mean, what I definitely mean is that I loved about this was the play on shadows. How are you going to tell me that this scene right here does not add like drama because of the shadowing? If that were just a bright red guy standing in front of a desk with like no real shadow like he's got here, that would be far less dramatic.
But the drama of a big character and the drama of mystery that is film noir and the reason why it's shot with heavy shadows, there's no mystery of this character. And the only reason that he looks dramatic is because he's big and red and a demon type of character. I
Okay,
don't
let's go
think
to
that
the
the
immediate
shadowing
next.
here, but hold on, I don't think that the shadowing here is what makes him dramatic. He has generic in this specific panel in which you are talking about, where he's talking to his aged father figure.
Mhm.
The shadowing is just as generic as any superhero, like heavy contouring done in Thor or in Captain America. This specific panel
You
that you're
find
trying to,
me where Thor is this heavily shadowed, and I will say that you are right.
Storm is on my side.
Um, and then okay, so fine, but then let's look at the immediate next image of what was his? I can't even remember his name. Brutenholm. Um,
It, broom. It's supposed to be like pronounced broom. Storm.
I think Broom was his nickname.
No, it said it was pronounced broom, like broom,
Oh, okay.
like broom
Anyways,
and hold.
so Broom,
And not, I
are
mean,
you telling me that the
pronounced broom
shadow of
and
him?
hold, not
Okay,
brute and hold. I was just saying it.
okay, Anna,
Never mind.
it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Not
Are
important.
you gonna sit here and tell me that the shadowy version of Broom right below is not adding drama and mystery when he's literally saying, "I have to tell you something, but I can't remember it."
I didn't really find it all that heavy impact mystery. I kind of found it, I mean, aside from what he says,
What do you
but I don't
consider to be
find,
mystery? Like it legitimately does not really get that much more mysterious than that.
then blatantly saying, "Oh, I want to tell you something, but I don't remember it." We're
Yeah.
talking about the art. So, I mean,
We're
like
trying
I'm
to have a
saying, like,
fluid
I'm agreeing
conversation
with you,
here.
aside from the speech bubble, I don't find, I mean, it's that specific panel does a good job in being, eerie, I guess, but I think what catches me on the whole eerie element to it is a lot to do with the amount of color added into the heavy shadowing.
Okay.
Because for me, it doesn't speak as strongly in being mysterious or mood heavy. It just kind of reads as an older comic, like which they also talk about in the very beginning intro, which I read at the end. But at the very beginning intro, it also talks about how when these comics were being written,
Mhm.
comics weren't looked at as anything great or fantastic aside from being knockoffs on the newspaper comics. And
Uh,
since then, the roles have reversed. And this very much speaks to me as just a generic, like, newspaper comic. The heavy use in shadowing and the use of extremely bright colors is very
okay.
Sunday paper.
And you feel like the story that's being told at the same time alongside the art, since our first portion of this show is usually talking about everything all at once, um, you don't think you think that this story that's being told is also very knockoff Sunday newspaper comic.
No, um, no, I don't
Just
think that
the
the
art
story
is.
I don't think that the story yeah, just the art is, and I think that I would have enjoyed the art a little bit more with the use of shadows if it was a more muted color palette, even if it was just, like, straight up black and white with pops of color being Hellboy, or, like, being the moments where, like, the dude's eyes glow yellow, or much later in the comic, the entire paneling is yellow. Like, having pops of color as a usage for storytelling, like, to push that, would have added more for me to the darker undertone that is the story. So, like, yeah, the pops of color for me didn't match the tone of the story, and that set me back personally from enjoying the art for what it was. Because, I mean, the art style, heavy shadowing for me like this isn't necessarily my favorite thing, just because you lose a lot of detail. So then if you lose all of that detail, I would like it to mean something and to really matter, and for it to really make that good punch, I think it would have been beneficial to have maybe a slightly muted color palette with pops of color versus everything is pop of color or it's black.
Okay. I can see where you're coming from, but I feel like again the mood of this comic, with the dramatic coloring just all around,
Hmm.
did play heavily into what I picture as a lot of Lovecraftian um, uh, inspiration. So I feel like it lended itself well to the story.
I
Um,
haven't read any Lovecraft books. I know what they are, I just have never read them.
I am not sure that they are books that you would actually enjoy.
Yeah, probably not. I've also never seen like the movies, the movie adaptations
Yeah, the movie adaptations are pretty good though, are pretty fun to watch. I think
of H.P.
is
Lovecraft
it
books.
is it Lock
Yeah,
and Key? Is that the comic that's kind of based around Lovecraft as well?
maybe. That's
Maybe
I mean,
I have to double check because it's because of that. It's been a comic that's on my list of of independents that I want to read.
mhm.
So I was kind of pleasantly surprised that we step into this and we get into some spooky paranormal stuff. And like I knew that the BRPD
Of
BPRD
paranormal
Bureau of Paranormal something something.
disturbances?
I don't
Mm,
remember. It's
I don't know.
BPRD, I think. Um, and I had always wanted to. So there's a BPRD comic run uh, that like is essentially following like Abe Sapien around on cases like this, and I was really excited to kind of take a kind of
Scared
spooky paranormal
in the movie.
mystery kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, like almost like X Files, but where Mulder and Scully are also paranormal creatures. And in the sense of what I was looking for, I got what I was looking for.
Okay.
Um, so I think that's the difference. And I knew what the art was going to look like going into it. It was one of the reasons why I picked it because I liked the heavy contrast, not just of like light and shadow, but like the use of color on every panel um, lends to adding additional contrast, in my opinion.
It is heavy contrast. I just think that it doesn't establish mood as well by combining heavy shadowing and bright color. Um,
I
because like
think,
here the colors are much more muted, and I think it speaks better for the tone of the comic. Whereas in like the last page, even um, when he's still talking to Brumenhold, and it's like this really nice and heavy contrast, and then the backdrop color is this magenta purple, and you're just like, but why? Why?
I mean, they
And
are what not complementary colors. They're uh, oh God,
magenta and red,
no, yeah, they're not complementary. I'm thinking there's like the adjacent colors.
tertiary, but they're not. I mean, they're in the same color family
Hmm,
again, which doesn't speak to heavy contrast anymore,
yeah,
other than one solid block of color next to a different solid block of color. Um, so I just think that mood-wise, it speaks better when the and even when you see it in this comic, when it's more muted colors, I think it matches the tone of the comic a lot more. Otherwise, you get panels like this where in the top one, it's this pink with the green frog,
hmm.
which are complementary colors to each other. It's just it kind of reminds me more of Andy
Like
Warhol
I was gonna
paintings,
say the same thing, like Andy Warhol pop art kind of.
which does not speak to like the grit of the comic.
No, and I will agree with you there. It's like there are but I don't feel like all of the art is that in this
It has
book, and it's more like it's one-off panels like this. It's not every panel becomes like that, and I think that is more like I can agree with you that it's jarring to go from frog panel to like literally any other panel on this page, and it's
only one that I really love on this page for the panel is the bottom one where he's going into the shadows,
right. And I think again, like I
which could
almost
be
feel like
personal,
if
but
the
that's
if
just
the environment stayed the same, and this was a frog like jumping onto a table in this ugly colored room, um, it would be different. Um, but because of that stark jump from like all of this like muted blues and purples and all of that going straight into your magenta background and all of this. Yeah, I get what you're saying there, but I feel like that wasn't that wasn't so prevalent in the book all the time that it took me out of it.
it's not that it took me out of it, it's just one of those things where I didn't think the art pushed the story for the majority of the story. There were moments where I was really into it, and then there were other moments so many colors, and then yet you're still missing so much detail to where you're like, then why even have so many colors?
I gotcha.
When you can't see half of the face, and yet the entire room is like a teal and green and normal colors, like
Okay,
it didn't have the effect that I felt the story could have matched, or the art could have matched the story better, um, more frequently throughout the book.
gotcha. Um, but I think we're obviously going to be disagreeing again on. Well, no, we didn't disagree on the art for the last book.
No, we didn't disagree on the
We
art in the
disagreed
last
on the
book. We
story
disagreed
for
on
the
the
last
story.
book. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Sorry.
No, no, no. Don't. Why are
And
you
it's not even like
apologizing?
I just think that it could have there are panels where I'm like, "Yes, this is exactly what if you wanna do heavy shadowing, like, I can totally get behind this," and then there were others where I was like, "Okay, why?"
Why is
So,
this happening?
yeah.
And
It
yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just not your thing for this, and I get it. Like the story was not my thing for Martian Manhunter.
mm,
Um, but let's talk about the story a little more because
okay.
Um, I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was it was good at establishing that Hellboy has an origin, but we don't really know his origin. So it's good at giving you kind of that hook
It's a
of
good introduction without giving you answers.
right. Um, but it gives you that kind of it gives you the bait for the whole book of like, oh, there's a lot of mystery as to where Hellboy came from, but we're not going
Mhm.
to tell you at this, this book. This is something he's going to learn over time. So like the hook to get the reader invested and interested, I think they did really well with. Um, at like kind of peppering throughout. I don't remember what book it was that we were talking about. I think it might have been it might have been Planet Hulk. I can't remember completely. Where we were where it's like there were the story did not. Oh no, it was. Oh my gosh, what was our independent last month?
Rat Queens?
Yeah, that's the one. So how they kind of didn't there wasn't a good through arc for any one character, like to
Yeah,
keep you interested, especially in that one girl. Whereas here it's like they introduced you to the character, they didn't like really tell you that much about it. They focused on the story, the mystery that they were working on,
yeah.
while
Which I will say
slightly
was
peppering
a bit
in. Yeah, yeah,
that they
yeah.
didn't because they didn't establish enough about any of the characters to empathize with any of the characters because they were just delving into a backstory that also lacks empathy. Because I mean it's a dark story without having any trauma linked to it
Well, I mean, not that we know of.
through this,
Yeah.
which would then make you empathize though with the character if it was a
See, I
traumatic
mean, I
event.
I can still empathize with a character who is struggling with his own identity and not knowing why he's
But did you
here.
feel like he struggled in this book with his identity? I didn't feel like he struggled with it until the very end when he was kind of like killing off his only outlet for finding out.
I
Because it
feel
didn't
like
seem like
he's
he
lived
was all
50
that
years in
concerned
this.
with it anymore.
I feel
He
like
kind of
he's
seems to sorry,
no, it's fine. I feel like he's lived 50 years on this planet and hasn't been able to find the answers that he's looking for, so he's kind of
just
given
given
up
up.
on it, which
Yeah.
completely understandable. And then all of the sudden, out of nowhere, this potential source of information is trying to murder everyone on the planet.
Yeah, but I mean, he never shows any interest in learning any more about it, which is understandable. The murder crazy information source that
Hmm.
is in the book.
Well, and also understandable because the way that he gets this information is essentially becoming this guy's like pet or slave or
Yeah.
whatever. So I still find empathy for not wanting to be completely under the control of another person in order to get the information about my life. Like,
Okay, I get you can empathize with the situation,
yeah,
but you don't feel his pain because he didn't display any pain and there was no character development to show that the character is in pain or has been in pain. No emotions truly were displayed. Even when Brumenhold dies, it's a very quick turnaround that you don't get to see the human side of this character, which I know comes out or should I would imagine comes out in later comics, just given the movie and the fact that this is a long run character.
mhm.
I struggled with this one story wise because I'm like, I know that I would like the character if I got to know the character. And I think that this one was heavy story,
I
which
feel
makes
like
sense.
this was an introduction to the genre of book that this was going to be,
Yeah.
while still giving you a hook at, okay, here's the main character, and this is the conflict that he is facing, like personally within himself. But we want to introduce you to also what this book is going to be, and not necessarily.
This was this was very much like the prologue to a novel that happened to have images. Whereas I think the following comics are going to be much more character driven and overall story driven. This one was literally just like the prologue setting up everything, which again makes sense. So that's why I'm like struggling with liking the story or not liking the story because I was kind of
The
I
real
wanted to know
the
what's going to
reality
happen,
is
but
that
I
she
wasn't.
wants to not like the story so that this is closer to a score of what her book was last
No,
week.
it's not at all. Because the thing is, I know that it would progress well, and it's a good story for anybody who wants to start with Hellboy. It's a good story for anybody who's wanting to get into like a mystery genre comic or even just experiment with mystery reading without having to pick up a big fat like 400-page book.
I think it's good sci-fi as well without being like super sci-fi. It, I mean, everyone knows good sci-fi. Like, when you think of sci-fi, one of the first things people think about is usually like Dune or Star Wars or Star Trek. But this is good sci-fi that's not like super heavy on sci-fi. You know what I mean?
Sci-fi where everybody is a very real character, just not a very real human being because
Right.
they're not human beings.
It's sci-fi light.
Yeah. So I think that it's a good intro thing. It's just one of those things that I almost wish in addition to these, you got like the following issues versus at the very end you got the very first like comics they ever posted,
Mhm.
which I did read those and I
Yeah,
thoroughly
I did
enjoyed
too.
those.
I did
So
as well.
that's why yeah, so that's why I'm like I don't want to say that I didn't like the story because it was literally just like reading the prologue. So, I mean, there was no I didn't feel attached to any of the characters because you didn't really get to know any of the characters as their personalities. You
Uh,
literally just saw them working, and
okay.
then you saw the main conflict that is going to be the through line for the remainder of the series.
Uh,
Um,
I
and I
can get
did
behind
thoroughly
that.
enjoy
Yeah.
those two end cap ones.
Mhm. I especially did, just for the sheer fact that it's like, oh man, this is gonna come in. It's gonna bring up so much like different mythologies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, this is gonna be so interesting and so cool. Um, and
And I wanna know more about the other villain that you saw in the end cap. So
yeah, dude, Nazis always make a good villain.
my phone is on loud. Sorry.
Um,
Um, Nazis always make a good villain.
yep.
Apparently, so does a brain in a bottle with a gorilla as their main henchman, because that's a trope that's through this and DC and I think Marvel. It is in
The
DC, and I have a feeling it's also in Marvel, but I can't think of it in Marvel. I
I mean,
know
the
it's
only
in DC.
thing that I can think of close to it would be MODOK and Marvel. But there's like a talking brain in DC.
Yeah, there's a talking brain in DC.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I can definitely understand what you're saying about the story here. Um, for you, and you know what, like, thinking about it, yeah, you're not wrong. You didn't get a lot of information um on a lot of the characters, but again, like, that was the opposite was my issue for Rat Queens. Like, I loved Rat Queens. I really enjoyed reading it,
Mhm.
and I want to read more. But they did not they should have just focused on like one aspect
Yeah.
of Rat Queens for that first volume. Like, they should have either introduced the world, or they should have like introduced one or two like dove into one or two of the queens,
Characters. Yeah.
you know.
Which, I mean,
Um,
this one at least does that for you. It deep dived into the world, just not any of the characters.
right. And that's why I'm saying like I
Set
think
up and deep dive later.
right. I think they did. I think the story did better here than it did with Rat Queens.
I can see that.
Just for the sheer fact that it stuck to one thing to
It was
focus on.
focused. Yeah.
Yeah, and it still put
Sorry.
in those hooks of, but you want to read more because you're gonna want to know where Hellboy comes from, or you're gonna want to like, and it still made those
Set
hooks
up well
with,
for both him and Liz.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it did it well with Sapien as well, Abe, because it's like they had that one scene. It's like where you here? Is it here? Yeah. It's like where Abe was discovered,
Yeah.
and it's like they introduce the hook for I think each of the three main characters, and add that sense of like, oh wow, all three of these people are kind of messed up.
And you know nothing about how they
Well,
began ever.
and it seems like at least two out of the three don't know where they came from, and the third doesn't know why she is the way that she is.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting that it's like they're going to be solving these super paranormal mysteries at the same time, like coping
Learning who they are,
with
type of thing.
their own identity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I will say, like, I'm less inclined. This is just my personal. I don't think that this would be how anybody who reads this comic would view it. So, I mean, this being my personal take on scoring this. Reading this really just made me want to watch the movie more than continue reading the comic.
it did both for me.
But that's just I don't think that's the case for I think the majority of people who are going to read this, who
Uh,
even have seen the movie, are going to want to read more. I think for me, it was the combination of I'm not really attached after reading this to any of the characters because it didn't set that up for me in that way. Um, and for me, just for me, in that way. And then I'm not in love with the art. So, like, both of those things together for me doesn't push me to continue reading it.
mhm,
But I do think that you're right. It sets up the three main characters really well to want to learn more about.
right. But it
Uh,
doesn't like go so deep into them that it's like, okay, so we've now gone so deep into the stories of these three characters that we're just going to very quickly go through the current conflict. Uh-oh. Oh no, everything froze. Oh no.
right. You froze too this time,
I
though.
did,
Yeah.
and so did OBS. So hopefully that ends up okay. We'll find out in
Okay.
editing.
Um,
Um,
but yeah. And Abe was my favorite in the movie too. So I'm just like, I want to know Abe's backstory the most.
uh-huh. I definitely
Uh,
want to know Abe's backstory the most also. It's not like they really got a chance to go over it in the movie either. So it's like I legitimately don't know anything about Abe.
yeah.
I don't really remember much about
And
Hellboy.
Liz.
I feel like his hand is a key. Like I feel like that was a thing in the movie. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie.
Yeah, it's been a while for me
I
seeing
also
it.
just now noticed that in this panel with Liz that
Hmm.
there are black frogs jumping in it.
Oh no, I went back. So after you have the next one, and she's like, "Oh no, these frogs," and I was like, "Wait," and so I went back and I go, "Yeah, froggies. Yeah, man. See again the magenta with the red. It makes it more like
Pop art.
yeah,
Hmm. No, I get it. Like I said, I understand.
Yeah, no, no, no.
but
I know.
it didn't take me out of it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the art a lot. Um, and so usually I'm really
But see, and then in this one where it's all black and blue, and then
mm,
you have him as the like stark contrast of a pop. I like
yeah,
still
absolutely.
wish it wasn't like such a bright blue, but that's okay. I could get over that.
Um, I actually think this was the page that I picked for like my favorite panel. 'Cause I really liked what?
Yeah?
Yeah, because I really liked this tall one on the first page.
Where
Um,
he's throwing the frog out the window at the mansion.
yeah. No, the side like where he's falling, where he's.
Oh, 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 okay.
I just again I love the shadow work of it. Um, I think it looked I thought it looked cool. Um, I enjoyed seeing the especially how Hellboy looked like that. I think I pretty much loved every panel that
Hellboy
Hellboy
was
was
in.
in. At least I loved Hellboy in his panels.
Mm.
Um,
I will say also, sorry, this is kind of random,
that's okay.
but because you were saying you loved him and his thing, and I was thinking costumes for him, I am I do or would hope that in other ones you kind of learn all the stories on what all is in his coat.
Oh, okay.
When he's like, all of my charms should have protected me.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, charms, what?
Say what? Um, yeah, and I thought the villain was kind of cool. Did you catch like who from history this villain was?
No, I had a really hard time figuring out if he was the dead guy or if he was the last missing. I knew who he was from the beginning, like in relation to Hellboy coming onto this plane of existence,
Yeah.
but with the little files page, I was
Oh,
like,
you were trying to figure out which one of them he was?
yeah.
He wasn't any of
And
those.
oh, okay. Well, then never mind.
Are you talking about this page?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think he was supposed to be any of these.
Well, then that explains why I was
Except
confused.
no, he's name unknown person.
Yeah, the last one? Okay,
Yeah.
I was between him being the very, very last one or the one where they were like, "Oh, yeah, he's dead with the Beatles," after the guy was like, "The largely exaggerations of my death." And I'm like, "What?
Well, so
You
he
don't look like him." So, yeah,
I'm trying to find the panel, but he like he talks about
that was one of my favorite pages.
I like the flashback panels a lot too. Like
But see, the flashback panels were kind of the mood
that you expected.
throughout, yeah.
Yeah. It should be right around here. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. But like he talks about how he was shot, poisoned, and thrown in a freezing river in
Oh,
Russia.
yeah, 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 no, 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 I did get that, I did get that.
It's like, oh, you're Rasputin.
I did get that because I was like, "Anastasia?" And then we continued reading, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I don't know if he's actually supposed to be him or not." But
No,
yeah, no, no, no.
I'm
I did get that with the and when he said that, my motherland is Russia. What?
yeah.
And then I started singing Into the Dark or The Dark of the Night, and it was a vibe.
Yep, absolutely.
And I
Um,
thought his death was also kind of funny with how Rasputin dies in the movie Anastasia, because I chuckled.
and I thought his character design was very ominous and creepy.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And then like going back and looking at the first panels and like really understanding what Broom uh like how he actually like wiped away all this like dust and grime on Rasputin and triggered all of this. Like I didn't
Yeah.
realize it until I started looking through the panels again. Like,
But no,
oh my god.
when you have the story then again, and he was like, "Yeah, I meditated." I was like, "Oh, you're him."
Yep.
Although learning how long he was frozen like that, very much like, damn. Which also makes sense given how old and immortal this man is,
Yep.
and that he consumed all of his mates, his travel mates.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was hoping for more of the black and white vibe that you got from
Gotcha. I can understand that.
because I mean there's still that pop of color that I think makes an impact.
Hmm.
And you could have still done when you have the fire scene at the end, you could have still done that all in yellow completely fine,
Right.
uh, to emphasize what was happening. I will say, because 'cause we're near it right now, page 89, I think it was, page 86, page 86. Sorry. My favorite panel itself was the one with Abraham on the ground and the
Yeah, that is a
supposed dead guy with the shadow in the back, I thought fit the film noir mystery moment really well,
uh-huh.
while still having quite a bit of color, and I loved the overall mood. And very much the mummy meets the spirit type of a moment was super dope to me. And well done. The other one that I liked was page what is this page?
I don't know.
Page 101.
Okay.
And I also liked page 104. So 101 does the whole fire in a muted tone
Uh-huh.
with the shadows and even just with the colors that I kind of felt like added the ash quality to it,
Yeah.
which made it more solemn. Which whereas page 104 has it being extremely bright and vibrant, which adds the energy, but it's all still very limited in the color palette that I think adds the drama and
Yeah.
the
I can fully agree and understand that. I really like on 104 I like this panel where Rasputin's like breathing fire at Hellboy.
action.
Like really really cool looking um in my opinion.
These were the fire ones, the 104 and the 101 ones are I think that they used the color in a limited color palette
Uh-huh.
really well for storytelling. My favorite one is 86 with Abe and
Yeah, absolutely. I
dead
understand.
daddy. Dead great granddaddy.
And I definitely liked the kind of cliffhangery ending where it's like, oh, Rasputin's dead, so now let's awaken the other
Yeah,
Nazis.
Nazi members.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I enjoyed this book overall. So I guess let's get into um, ratings.
Okay.
Um, and I always start with story. Um, I will give this story. I think I give this story a 7. Um, it's. I do agree with some of what you're saying. In the sense that, uh, yeah, like there's not a lot to keep you super invested in the personality of the characters, just the story of where they come from. And I do agree that the personalities didn't get to shine that much in this specific volume. But at
Mhm.
the same time, like I was saying before, I really think this was a good introduction to the world that um, that the reader is going to be going through. And I think the fact that they focused on that as a big thing um,
Yeah.
really made this book better for me.
Yeah. I also was gonna give it a 7 for pretty much the same reasons, and the fact that, like, I would still recommend it to anybody who liked the movie Hellboy, who wants to get into comics, who wants to get into just this overall genre, regardless if they're interested in it from a comic standpoint, film standpoint, or novel standpoint, it's a good taste of it.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, everything that I said that kind of just knocks it down a few pegs for me is I'm not from this alone. Like if I knew absolutely nothing else about the franchise of Hellboy, from reading this alone, I'm not super invested in the character. But it sets up the characters well enough that I think even in just the next comic, even just the next single issue one,
Hmm.
you'd be a little bit more tied in just based off of us reading those little end cap like special ones that you have
Right.
gives more life to the characters themselves in such a way that would be interesting to continue reading. So, yeah,
Yeah.
7.
Reasonable. So
I agree.
art.
Oh, art is a me.
That is you.
Okay, so okay. I don't want to go so low as saying 5 because I mean I do like I think I'm gonna go with a 6.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with a 6 because half of the book, okay, maybe half is a little bit of a stretch, but a portion of the book does what I was hoping that it would do, um, or enjoy enough doing, like with the color theme, palettes for the fire, with a few of the single panels doing the muted colors with the pop of color
Mhm.
versus all stark black and then the pop of color and then the whole flashback sequence. I thought that bits and pieces of this were done in a way that I was expecting slash hoping for it to do with the genre and the mood and the entire book. Whereas the other part got way too much pop arty, old age newspaper comic art that didn't push the tone or the storyline
Mhm.
in a way that enhanced it, but just as a way of saying, I'm a comic.
Haha.
uh, Rawr. So, yeah, that's why I'm gonna give it a 6. I don't think it deserves as low as a 5 because I think that the art is done well for what it is. I just don't think that it fits my expectations or my hope for it linked and in conjuncture with the story.
Yeah, I mean obviously we were disagreeing on this throughout. I really enjoyed the art. I didn't have any point where I was so distracted by it that it bothered me like it did you.
Hmm.
Um I would give it I really enjoyed the style. Like I said, the shadow play and all of that was just like really on point for me, and I enjoy that as a way of kind of setting the creepy, mysterious tone of it, even though you may not agree that it is the same.
Well,
Um,
I also think that, like, sorry, in
sure.
this one page that you're stuck on with the living room scene, having that go from either all black and white or all extremely muted colors with the dark shadows and then like a lightning flash, you get all would have been so dramatic and so well done. And yet you just outright get all of that color with really dark contrast and you don't really know if the room is dark or if all the lights are on or like how bright the lights are. It doesn't set the mood for me. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was literally just because we were on that page and I was like, oh,
Well, I'm on
okay.
this page because I really want to point out how much I appreciate the fact that Miss Cavendish always calls Hellboy Mr. Boy.
Mr. That was funny.
Yeah, it cracked me up every time I read it. I'm like, oh my god, Mr. Boy. Um, so yeah, so for me, art, I'm giving an 8.
Okay.
Just because it was something different than what I feel like we usually get in the comics that we read, and I enjoyed it a lot. So that's all I have to say about it.
Different ends of the spectrum, man.
Pretty much. And
I
then
feel like you have to be really bad for me to give you like 5 or below.
yeah, I don't think we found that book yet.
No.
It'll
Because I
be
mean, me not liking something and it being
bad.
bad are different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And overall, I do first, right?
Yeah.
Overall, I'm gonna say I'd probably because of how much I enjoyed the art, like I was legitimately going page by page, being like, "Oh man, I really like this. Oh man, I really like this." Um, I'm gonna give it an 8 overall
Okay.
for that reason. And again, I think it is a solid choice for anyone new to reading comic books to jump in and start reading Hellboy, or just like wanting to get into something kind of again Lovecraftian or that kind of like dark sci-fi mystery kind of shtick.
Yeah. No. I can totally agree. And I think because of that, like I don't want to give it I am not leaning towards the 6 just because that might be how I took away from it, but I don't think that's the score that the book deserves, so I would give it a 7.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I do think that it lends itself really, really well to anybody reading it, anyone getting started in any of these elements that we've talked
Uh
about,
huh.
or categories that we've talked about.
It's
And I think that if I were to give it lower than a 7, that would just be because of my personal bias of not having fun reading.
yeah. I was about to say you're kind of going more off of the fact that is this was not a story for you, but it is. It
A story.
wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I get it.
Which is why I want to give it the 7, not the 6 between the two.
I dig it. I think that is reasonable. Reasonable. Um,
Yeah. And this one was such a more, I mean, I was gonna say such a more civil conversation, but I mean, we weren't angry at each other last time. It was just funny.
we just we disagreed a lot more last
Yeah.
episode. um, so
Stop
let's
freaking
uh
out, Hank.
let's talk about what next week's book is.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Next week's book is the manga of the month, and that was my pick, and it's Emanon. Emanon.
That's how I keep
How would
saying
you
it.
pronounce it?
Emanon
That Emanon? Okay.
or
Emanon
yeah.
Volume 1.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Cover looks really pretty. I haven't delved into it yet. Oh no, we're all frozen again. I can't hear you, Anna. So I'm just gonna talk. Um,
I had read in the past for manga or comic.
you're gonna have to start that over because I did not hear anything because I froze again.
Oh, okay. For picking Emanon, I did like the art that like you get in the little preview thing for Amazon and Comixology. And the storyline itself sounded really interesting and drew me in just because it was very different from anything I have read previously, any format. And I've never read like a a book based on just based on the little summary that you get when you have it. It's very, very different. So it'll be fun, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or it took
Um,
us on a wild ride again, and it wasn't like I thought it would be.
I feel like with the manga, I have not been as good at like being objective with it because it's like I really don't know what's good manga and what's bad manga. Just that, hey, you know what? I didn't hate this.
That's true.
Anyways, Anna, where can people find you on the internet?
I am on the Instagram under Anna underscore Riddick, or which is my personal account, mostly my dog, or my art account, which is a Riddick underscore designs. Ben, you?
Oh, you know, everyone can always find me everywhere, pretty much as it's Ben Pie. Um, you know, Instagram, Twitter, uh, everywhere. I'm just
YouTube.
It's a Ben Pie. And sometimes you can find me doing these things with the video games like Pokemon, where I'm doing the Genlock challenge. I also DM, a D&D game, a homebrew game with some friends on Sunday on Twitch at Eats Ben Pie.
You know
Uh,
what you sound like right now to me?
what?
You know the bomb expert from Atlantis, the
Oh,
Disney movie?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you started out sounding like Bartok, and then you ended the guy from Atlantis.
Let's see, you've got your nitroglycerin, your fuses, your sticks, some extra nitroglycerin.
That's good.
But yeah, of course, you can also find all of these things at itsbenpie.com/links.
Yep,
Um,
including our Instagram for social media related to, like, this only, which is Sibling
exactly.
Rival-Read.
Hell yeah, it is. It's Hellboy. Haha. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week for our manga read, Emanon. And until next week, Shalom-Aste.